Today we're going to be looking at a battle on Raxus Prime from the perspective of Boba Fett. The battle starts off with Boba Fett being held by one of Count Dooku's servants in Dooku's lair. The Count sensed the Jedi were coming and he set out, telling his servant to kill Boba Fett, who recently was too nosy and found out about a secret the Count had been working on. With the Count gone, the servant loosened his grip on Boba, and this is when he kicked off a wall, grabbed his father's battle helmet and ran off. With the sky filled with smoke from the explosion and Count Dooku's defense system going off, Boba Fett was in a bad situation. Boba Fett saw the Republic ships in the sky and knew the Count was right. Boba Fett couldn't help to notice the clone troopers and their impressive tactics as they laid waste to many of Count Dooku's defenses. As Boba Fett watched the chaos ensue, he was filled with excitement. He hated both sides, Count Dooku and the Jedi, but he knew this was the perfect time to escape. Boba Fett's father taught him that if you needed something to get done, you must act on it immediately and not hesitate. As he was running away, Boba Fett had thought to himself that anything was better than being Count Dooku's prisoner. Seeing the Count's ship rise from behind the lair, he wondered if the Count had got what he came here for. Before he could further think, two more ships started to chase Count Dooku's. Boba Fett refocused on what he had to do. An opening in the wall allowed for Boba to go through. Still wearing his protective gear, he did not have to fear about breathing in the deadly chemicals of Raxus Prime. Also from his father, Boba Fett learned the importance of having the right equipment and that it was one of the most important parts of self-sufficiency. After going through the hole and crawling around, Boba Fett finally entered his room. He knew he had to hide the helmet of his father, otherwise the clones might know who he was. Immediately after this, he crawled out and was met face to face with a whole squad of clone troopers who pointed their guns at him. They asked him if he was one of the orphans. Having no clue what they were on about, he lied and said yes. I think that Boba Fett learning to lie from his father really helped him out here. The clones, under protocol, had to offer Boba Fett food, water, and a place to stay, so he went with the clone troopers. CT-4619 was the clone trooper he had been talking to. So before we move on any further, I want to further elaborate on the importance these events had for Boba. Keep in mind he is a 10-year-old boy. Jango Fett wrote in a book for Boba Fett to find the Count, and there you will gain access to the credits you need. I think coming into this whole thing, Boba Fett thought he could trust Count Dooku, and then he learns he can't when the Count first tries to have him killed and second left him for dead. This furthers the feelings Boba Fett always had of being alone, and which is why in the Clone Wars series he has such a hard time trusting people. After his father died, Boba lost the only person who cared for him. One of the only things Boba Fett still had was his love for chaos and ultimately a connection to the clone troopers. Now let's get back to the story. Explosions rained down from everywhere and Boba Fett was caught in the crossfire. While watching the clone troopers in action, he had noticed they move like his father, and then his father trained them as good as he trained Boba, or even better. So I think right here was definitely an emotional moment for Boba. He had constant reminders of his father who had recently died all around him. A pivotal moment had come up. Boba Fett was caught in the middle of a battle and he needed to get off the planet. He knew his best chance was to side with the clones, so he might have a chance to escape. Boba, picking up a rifle, started firing at the droids. This was his first time in a real battle. As one of the clones died, their helmet flew off. Boba did not look, as he did not want to see the face of his father, as it might deepen his sadness over his father's death. Boba Fett and a few other clones were holding a last stand against the oncoming droids. At the side of CT-4619, Boba Fett had noticed the clone did not break focus. As the droids took out the third trooper that was still standing, Boba thought it was hopeless. That was until a female Bothan joined the fight wearing the robes of a Jedi. She started to repel the droid fire with her lightsaber, giving the clones one last open shot. The remaining forces combed the ground for survivors. There was no time for grief or happiness. There was just the task at hand. So with the battle being done, I think this is when Boba Fett realizes, or maybe reflects on the fact he might not hate all of the Jedi, just Mace Windu. After this battle, he did a lot of reflecting on what it meant to be self-sufficient, and I think one of the biggest lessons he learns is that you have to take full advantage of all of the opportunities that you encounter. I think the story ties well into where we last see him in The Mandalorian. I think Boba Fett used a lot of the same lessons he learned from his father and used in the Battle of Raxus Prime to survive on Tatooine. He goes on to think about how he can manipulate the situation and trick the Jedi into getting what he wants. If you enjoyed this video on Boba Fett's perspective of this particular battle, please leave a like. I'm thinking about making more Boba Fett videos as the Mandalorian is playing.